Well, I'll just kick it off, and I can, I've been doing this for well over 15 years, and I've started companies that look like this, and nonprofits that are deploying free water both domestically, and now we're starting to do it internationally. But when you hear nonprofit, you think, oh, that's a charitable pursuit. And I'm a student, I'm a graduate student. I want to go out in the world and I want to create impact in the world. I also want to be financially rewarded. And that would be venture or for profit. And where we're seeing, I think, where we are now in this generation, in this era, is understanding where philanthropy and for profit really work together to help things, specifically when it comes down to things when you're interested around water or energy or shelter or food. If you have an idea and you want to create the next Snapchat, well, go with God. It's not a socially impactful thing. And you're probably, if you can aggregate users, you're probably going to get lots of term sheets and stuff over there. But those, Snapchat and things like those other different types of entrepreneurial products, while very successful, are not necessarily impact products. My particular entrepreneurial bent, both from a nonprofit side and a for-profit side, has always been things that have had to do with impact. And why is that? Because we know where we are in the world today. We know there's a very, very popular venture funder called Generate Capital. And the founder, two of the founders, one has actually gone to the Whitehouse to work on tech transfer. But one of my earliest mentors, Scott Jacobs at Generate Capital, had said, hey, dude, if you're going to start on this journey, know that you can be very, very profitable saving the world. You can make a lot of money out there trying to help people. And while we all like money, we all like profits, I'm certainly motivated by having a comfortable existence. But so inside of me, I grew up in an environment where my mom ran the United Way, and I always had an opportunity using my skill set. I went to art school, but now I'm smack dab in the middle of engineering schools like UCLA and MIT, because I found I could feather my nest by using my talents as sort of a storyteller and a designer, and looking for connections and helping, whether I was going to make a dollar or not, helping entrepreneurs that had great innovations make connections that they weren't already seeing. And that's become a really fun part of my job. I was at MIT Tuesday. I'm back here in California. And there was just, you start talking to these entrepreneurs and you start talking to these kids that are in labs, and they think they're in one job, or they think they have an idea they're going in one particular way. And by looking at them and sort of digesting very quickly what their technology is or what their impact bet is you can sort of help them look from an entrepreneurial lens at where their technology, whether it has a logo or doesn't. I call things have logos or pre-logos. Pre-logo is research and development, and logos are, hey, I'm a company, I'm going to go raise some money and I got a logo and I'm in a portfolio and a grid. A lot of times with what we're doing with 501c3, we're looking for pre-logo companies, right? Or pre-logo technology. And the good thing about me being able to have to reside between philanthropy and venture is you may be a pre-logo company or just a pre-logo technology, but you're freaking awesome and you're going to impact a lot of lives, whether it's, developing world battery storage or solar dissemination or creating female entrepreneurs, doing specific things. I don't care if it ever becomes a for-profit company, but I want to help you with philanthropic capital. So that's a little kind of a diatribe about sort of where I am right now, but why this, I'm a lot older than a lot of you young men and women. I just turned 50, I'm proud of it, but realize somebody who graduated art school, went into the record industry, right? And sort of feathered my nest in Hollywood doing like very cool stuff for movie posters and cool stuff for just being cool, that through my 30s, I was just like, what am I doing? This sucks. I'm just making cool crap to put out with the cool universe to do cool stuff. I say, I'm tired of that. I've already done it. I've done cool stuff and I've seen artwork I've done and up in lights. And I was just like, well, wait a minute. I think there's a way for me to apply my talents. And granted, when you think of entrepreneurship in the energy, food, water space, you start thinking about mechanical engineers, chemical engineers, biologists, people that are involved with material science, right? These are things that I didn't really gravitate towards in high school, but I realized after spending a lot of time with them, and there's kind of a funny story that I had kind of a negotiation with Jaden's parents, Will and Jada, about how to get me out of the cool stuff and get me over with the nerd side of life. And that there's a funny story about that, but I started realizing like, what legacy am I going to have? And so, what legacy am I going to have in terms of like, I don't want to make any more cool crap that lives on a billboard on Sunset Boulevard. I'm good with that. what I want to do is help people. This is inherently what I want to do. And I also had, obviously, being a business owner for so many years, there's an entrepreneurial bent. And back to that sort of quote from Scott Jacobs, that you can do very well in the world by helping people, I think was not in vogue in 2008, 2009, but is very much in vogue. Younger generation coming on. I want to be involved with them. I want to design my career for impact. I want to help people, whether it's by going vegan or changing my lifestyle choices, or eschewing the ability to use plastic, by working in water innovations, which there's such a wide open space, from sensors to filtration to all this kind of stuff. It gets really nerdy really quick, but I like this stuff. So when I was, some reason, the kids, Jaden and Willow's school, just happened to be next to my office, right? So, and I had worked with the family for a long time. I designed an album cover for Will back in the day. I just sort of fell into the Will and Jada space. And I sort of was like, the kids would come in, like any young kids, and be like, Drew, there's a whole ocean of plastic, and you can walk on it if you go out to the gyre, and it's crazy. And what are we going to do about it? And I was like, all right, hold on. And hey, Drew, how come we're not powering the entire state of California with solar panels? I was like, well, that becomes really a matter of dollars and cents, and it becomes a question of material science and the efficiencies of solar panels and where we are. And so I had to I took on these kids, and I said, well, Jada, I'll take on the kids and we'll go and find answers for these questions they have, but you have to send me to MIT for a crash course and everything so I can be an expert in this, right? And this is somebody like, I'm not meant to go to MIT. I graduated with a painting degree and an art direction degree from Syracuse, right? Imagine my parents' delight with a painting degree. And so what I ended up doing is I went to MIT and I said, I need to be really, really, really smart about this, and I need to be expert. And what I realized in an environment like MIT, which is, like a Vatican City state of really smart people working on really, really important problems, is I realized that there's two things that could happen. One, I wish I could bring the entire world of angst-ridden younger generation to MIT to somebody's actually working on this, that there are people in this world that are very, very bright, that are addressing issues that we see so many doom and gloom stories about, and we don't see a lot of stories about solutions. And that there's a city state of people that are very, very bright that are working on this, and they're working on whether they can have $1 billion exit or not. This is what they are. There's an altruism in that environment of what we would call clean tech. And so as the kids came on and started saying, hey, we want to change the world, and this is like a 12-year-old Jaden, I said, all right, well, what started as more of a sort of sustainability class really turned into like an MBA, a business class, saying, all right, we want to let's disrupt the company. Or if we're so frustrated at the way corporations like oil and gas or big CPG are playing, how can we look at why can we do a class project, like a MOOC project? Let's like a fake project, and let's look at every value chain across the step, and let's look at how we can inject impact across the entire value chain, from inception, manufacturing to commercialization. And they were like, yay. And I go, all right, what do you want to do? What do you want to disrupt? And they're like, bottled water. I'm like, all right, that's cool. Let's look at it, because at that time, bottled water was pretty much the biggest villain on the planet, with the Pacific Gyre and this and that, and ironically, I remember I was on a panel in New York at one time, and this sort of uppity professor was sort of making fun of me, or saying she outlawed single serve plastic bottle. She was at Fordham. She outlawed single serve plastic bottles in her classroom, right? And she was kind of giving me a hard time about this. And I was like, okay, cool. But your co-eds that you're teaching, when they go to, let's say, do their laundry, do you know that they're carrying their detergent in something that's the equivalent of about 50 cases of water with its high density polyethylene, when you take your detergent down there? I said, have you outlawed that? Have you looked at any sort of, instead of being the house is on fire and we must remove all single serve plastic bottles? And as it goes, there was an easy way from a commercial standpoint to get into a market that already vilified and say, you already know we have a disease. This is a cure because it uses alternative inputs. This is bioplastic. This is paper that's responsibly sourced, and the water itself is responsibly sourced. And so we went on and we presented it to mom and dad at the end of the semester or whatever it was. And also, I know that Just Water is just over 10 years old because on my 40th birthday, I went to Florence, Italy as a little treat. And I was in Florence, Italy, And it was, you know, it's kind of touristy down there. And I was walking over to like, well, garbage can, I pull a garbage can, and I looked in the garbage milk jar, a milk Tetra Pak. What? Who are these people? And I put it in my suitcase, and I came back and I called the company, and nobody would return my call. Right. So, and I got, you know, it's like some switchboard thing, and all of a sudden I had like the quote back office, and I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't getting anywhere with the company, but I was like, this is the bottle. This is what I want to use. This is dope. Nobody's doing it for water. This is fantastic. And then it wasn't until like we had to get like Uncle Will on the phone for anyone to actually call us back. Right. So that's an unfair advantage for sure. But this is early days, like this is around 2010. And I remember going to talk to different people, and the buyers would say, nobody's going to buy water they can't see. Right. That was like the ass thinking. Sorry, Stuart. I'm just like, I can remember those times. It kind of pisses me off. Like that was like that was like, we'll say the opaque thinking, so to speak. Right. I hope I didn't cut out. And so, okay. So I was, you know, my mom had told me, she said, the one thing that is a common trait through all people that are either geniuses or successful is persistence. It's not, you know, I went to Yale. It's not blah, blah, blah. It's persist, persist, persist. And so as entrepreneurs, as you guys walk out into the world, yeah, I mean, this thing that, you know, this thing got knocked down so many times that I was just like, I was frustrated, and I just like, didn't give up. And so I went around with something called a densitometer, which is a way where you can like, it's a little sensor that you can put on like colors, and it will tell you what the thing is. And I went around and I started sampling all the blues that are out there, and I did like a focus with my friends. It was, what blue looks the most like water? We finally landed actually kind of like a stolen blue from the Adidas packaging, but stays here. And the reason water is so big on the design, what informed the design was what the market was. The reason water is so big on this is because people at Whole Foods or wherever said, no one's going to be able to know that it's water, right? So there's a funny thing with when Bill Murray accepted the Oscar for Lost in Translation, on the movie that won the Oscar, he had said, hey, I'd love to thank people up at the studio, but there's so many people trying to take credit for this right now, I wouldn't know where to start, right? So cut to 5 years, and Just Water is a success. And all these people over there, the ones that were saying, no one's going to buy that, are all like, oh my God, we love Just Water, so great. And you're like, yeah, okay, where were you when it was, you know, early days, when it was sort of cold? But so one of the things that we had done with the kids was, it's one thing to have a paper bottle, right? This is a great thing. We were able to bring the first machine into America and do this from a material standpoint. That's great. But when I was talking before about how we set up, it's, you know, the journey of looking specifically at water is, water in America is different every single place you go. It's different in Flint, it's different in Newark, it's different in Skid Row, it's different in Watts, different in the Central Coast, different in the Pacific Northwest, certainly down in like New Orleans. Water is a particular issue that has a different personality. And so when we were looking at this, you know, there was a Nestle bottling plant that was just outside of Joshua Tree, right? And we obviously in California have always had a struggle. Anything west of the Mississippi is always water scarce. It's not good. You just don't know where it is. And specifically, as you've seen in the news throughout the summer and from northern to southern California, we're having a tough time water-wise out here. And then looking at like Joshua Tree and Nestle pulling this out of Joshua Tree, you're just like, what? You guys are dicks. Like, what are you doing? This is a water-stressed region. And so I looked at it and I was just like, where is a way where, and not a lot of people know this about this, but where's a way where you can look at the way water is currently acquired by large companies like Coke, Pepsi, and Nestle and Niagara? And how are we looking at what they're doing, which is kind of not so good? And how are we looking at how we're doing it? And so we established, and this is kind of nobody really knows about this that much, but we established a way where we could acquire water from a community that actually just conveniently I grew up in. But how can we do it so that we give you $1 for X water, 50 cents of it has to go back to infrastructure or plant repairs in that area, right? I know this gets wicked nerdy really quick, but this is really important because neglection of infrastructure, and we're seeing this play out on Capitol Hill right now, is where Flint came from. It's where Newark came from. It's where the Central Coast came from. There's a lack of investment in infrastructure. And so how could a for-profit company actually have a role in that? And so I'm really pleased to say that we've put so much more money into the community that we've actually repaired some of their infrastructure. And oddly, by taking water out of this community, taking this water out of this community, which has a ton of water, like 3 billion extra gallons, selling it to people at Whole Foods, putting that money back in that community affects infrastructure. We're actually raising the water level because we're fixing the infrastructure. That makes no sense. We're taking water out and it's raising. but it's because we thought of this water model. And I know it's really nerdy and it's a little bit kind of, it's nerdy, but that's the thing I'm most proudest of, is this sort of the public-private water model for Just Water. And it didn't need to be there, but here I am 10 years later on a call with some new friends that I've met that are all thinking about entrepreneurship. And I'm proud of that. When I go to my reward, I can just say, I saved a whole bunch of water for this community up in the Adirondacks and looked at them in a good way. So from that, obviously creating a water company, and just as a side note, one of the things I didn't want to do was just like go, I don't know if you know what a pull shed is, but a pull shed is what you see in like a damn, manufacturing concern at the outskirts of town or something like that. I was like, I do not want to build the pull shed, not in a small Northeast town that already has vacant buildings that are not contributing to the tax code. I want to be in a building that was previously existing, and it's bringing it back onto what we call tax rolls, right? So yes, and it was a church that I went to as a kid, and it was kind of like the funny church across town, like when you missed church, your parents would take you there and you're like, oh man, this church sucks. And I laugh about it that, I'd be there like after hockey practice when I was like 7. And if someone had ever told me, you know what, Drew, you're gonna go to Hollywood, you're gonna meet Will Smith, and you're gonna come right back to this church and build a water factory right where that dude is handing out communion, I'd be like, you're crazy. But it happened. And so that makes me think, like, what other crazy shit can I think about? Like, hey, Drew, you're gonna do the first water system on Mars. It happened. Why not manifest it? So anyway, from there, Just Water was great, and the train was coming off the bike. It was running fine. We're lots of companies or countries. It's still going well. Particularly at aquariums, zoos, museums, and oddly cruises. And that bugs me a little bit. But the cruise people are actually trying to get their act together. And one of the things I learned from a lot of this activity is like, the massive infrastructure that is cruises does have a little bit of marine life havoc on it. But they've made a choice to say, we need to reduce our plastic water bottles. And hey, Drew, what else can you do to help us be better? But for some, really bad companies that are out there, I have noticed specifically, as we're seeing in the last 2 to 3 years, and this gets really financially nerdy, but there's a guy named Larry Fink who, manages like, $10 trillion. And he's pissed off. And he's just like, if you're not going to start following ESG principles, and he said that when he writes a letter, the entire global world listens to him. He's like, if you're not going to follow ESG principles and look at climate change as a systemic public health crisis, then I'm going to invade your boards and kick you the heck out of your companies. Right. And so then people are like, oh shit. If you want, you should Google Larry Fink, Davos World Economic Forum FU letter. Yeah, from BlackRock. Yeah. And like that dude put his, he put it out there, and he could do that. That was a big win beneath the sails of corporates or people that want corporates to behave in the right way. So that's an interesting thing. Then when we looked at, well, what do you want to do next? You've done Just Water, that's that. I said, look, I think there's a way where we can be effective from a nonprofit standpoint, from helping people that are really having some trouble with water. We have so many water engineers around here. I learned so much about water. I've met so many people from UCLA and MIT and all sorts of engineers and techs. And that's how I got introduced to Stuart through Eric Koch, who's probably one of the top 10 water engineer entrepreneurs on the planet, who's at UCLA. And we've become nice friends. We said, listen, we know how we can do engineered solutions in communities like Flint. And when we first went to Flint, we were realizing, like, man, first of all, this was a massive massive public policy screw up. This was horrible. The outcomes on these young children and these senior citizens and everywhere in between are horrific. They are, it was bad, and it still is bad.
Yeah, 20% of the homes in Flint, Michigan still do not have water in their homes, and they're buying bottled water to cook with, to drink. So
they don't trust it. So the solution that we created when we created 501c3 and our first product out there called the Water Box is not, there's no IP in it, no nothing. It was just going into a market, sitting down, listening, seeing how they're doing things, and then going back and engineering towards that. That was it. That's all we did. And it's a freaking hit. Like, and that's Flint. And then as we start getting, and now Flint is the poster person for malfeasance and poor quality water in America. And we did our first box there in 2018. But what you start to also look is where are all the other water issues in America? And there are a slew of them that our little solution actually can help. And guess what communities they are? They're Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. So what started as a sort of an opportunity, a relief sort of approach towards rolling in these cool little boxes. And if you go to 501c3.org, you can see what this box looks like. We just kind of brand. And they're very, we have 12 3x that by the end of next year. So we should reconvene, and we'll also be international. We have one going to Uganda right now. There's some other talk, but this is like this simple engineered solution just nobody thought of. And it's the bridge between the expense, the weight, the logistical problem, and the cost of pallets of bottled water, and systemic fixes from an infrastructure standpoint, where there's nothing in between to help these people, and there's no one shining a light on that. So that's part of one of the things that was a little bit of a differentiating factor for us, is the ability to create impact and solutions that are deployed, actually deliver real impact, but actually tell the stories about it and amplify that. And so that's kind of what put us on the map, is that we were able to make really cool content and get it up and get it amplified and get it social. So that is something that we're really, really proud of. But what we also learned is when we went in there, we were like, wait a minute. We're up here in the north side of Flint. I'm in the center. If you go to the center part of Flint, it's beautiful. It's like, I think it's the Michigan and Michigan State and Kettering, and there's freaking farmers markets, and it's all nice, and everything's paved. And then I was like, wow, Flint's pretty nice. And then you go like 2 miles outside of town, and it's a world away. You could buy a house for $1. There's only fried foods. It's a food desert. It's all these issues. And we started looking, and then you also, as we started working, when you go along your entrepreneurial journey, you do calls all day. Sophia and I do calls all day today. We did a call with some random ass dude who called us today. And all of a sudden, it's like, we're doing a call next. I was doing like mobile microgrids in Tanzania. Like this, part of the thing is, it's like you collect friends along your journey, right? And the reason Sophia, who was an amazing recent grad from UCLA's Institute of Environment and Sustainability, very proud of her, is I can't keep track of all the friends we get. I wish Stuart and I could do a weekly call, but we don't have the time. But when Stuart needs me, he hits me up, and I say, yeah, I'll do it. And then at some point, and a year from now, I'm going to say, hey, Stuart, check out this amazing innovation. Maybe it's not right for you, but what do you think? It's an IoT play. What do you think? Whatever. So when we got into Flint, we realized there's a food desert. So we're okay. Leafy greens are a great way to combat people that have ingested lead. So we need to get on this if we're going to not only help by providing water, but help on the road to recovery of these people. And in that community is a fantastic community. And so like Kettering University was involved. I didn't even know Kettering was a university until I went to Flint, but it's pretty badass university. The US EPA is involved. You start collecting friends like badges, and they're fun, great ways. And, Mastercard called us and was like, we have a big, initiative around helping small businesses and communities of color. I'm like, cool. That's not our remit, but meet our group in Watts, California. And that was like a couple months ago. And just yesterday, I got a video from down in Watts that Mastercard sent like all their C-suite to Watts to go listen to the problem. Like the C-suite of Mastercard. That's like a legit, not the whole C-suite, but there were like CFOs, CTOs, the CEO was around. I'm just like, wow. And now I didn't have any financial gain, any interest, but to be like, you guys go and talk and go do good stuff in terms of financial literacy in Flint, in Watts. It's just like it's a favor game. It's just kind of like going and looking and saying, how much good can I do today? And so with going into these individual communities, the water box is a wonderful thing because it delivers water, but I call it a positive Trojan horse, because you get in there and you start realizing these issues. And so one of the things that we're really, really proud of is working with some of the people at UCLA, was realized if we had a sensor that could real-time monitor the profile of active public drinking water, but think of like the Nest for water, okay? And it could actually create cloud-based data about the actual profile of these water. And we have so many nice people in these environments. We could go to Flint and deploy 40 of these things right away, over at grandma's house, over at the pastor's house, over wherever, right? And so this is why we deployed it, but I would not have known that there was an issue had I not gone to Flint, put a darn water box in there. And then I'm in there and I'm like, wait a minute, we can design something with this. Why is this not here? And I talked to smart people at Samueli School of Engineering, and they say, yeah, that actually could be done. And let's just Why is nobody doing this? This is ridiculous. So I'm really excited about the fact that we're going to be able to go back to all our water boxes and redeploy them with these sensors that are going to populate up to the cloud. And we, a private entity, is going to real time see the real time ongoing profile of the drinking water. And if this stuff had been there in 2013, Flint would have never happened. Now think about an innovation. If somebody could tell you, if you could invest in this and you could have saved lives, infant mortality, cognitive problems and brain problems with young kids in a community that didn't look like the community you grew up with. And at the end of the day, you can come back and say, I helped bring data to the world through my initiatives. You can lay your head on the pillow and say that you did a good job today. And so we're really excited about getting this sensor out, and I would never have been able to do that. And also, just as back to, I would never be able to do that had I not gone to Flint and gone to Newark and gone to Watts and gone to Ferguson, gone to Jackson. There's a lot of people that, a lot of people in the Black and brown community that just don't have any advocacy. So if I can bring hardware into that community to do that, that's freaking awesome. And so the idea of a nest for water, meaning I'm looking, and it might be a concerned mom in Beverly Hills, or it might be a woman in Newark who's concerned for her kids. They can equally get these sensors when they come out. And why that's interesting is because the water box, think about a line right here of nonprofit and for-profit. The water box will never become a for-profit company. This is not, we don't want to do it. It's silly. We don't want to see, we're not selling them. It's all charitable based. That hangs in the impact space, and they're workhorses. They're going to deliver water to people who need them, and they're going to make them feel advocated and have some ownership and some feeling of some stake in their own water. That sensor thing might product. It might be a real product that could be quite valuable when we look at IoT and the way data is evaluated. But the idea on that, because that product, which could be a venture-based, risk-based capital kind of product, that can get turned into a minimum viable product or even a maximum viable product, all with charitable capital, because it's doing a good thing. It's doing an ESG thing. It's a very interesting thing to wait about where charitable capital specifically, and I'm not sure entrepreneurially, all you people on this Zoom tonight, where your head's at if you want to go start a company, but never, ever underestimate the idea that philanthropic capital can really help de-risk and help you do before you hop out and do, we call the Sandhill Shuffle, which is like going out for venture. And so, I could do a whole separate thing just on the ability for philanthropic, or what we call patient capital or concessionary capital, where that's role plays in, well, I call it the investment gap that threatens the planet. But there's a lot of great companies that you're going to see coming out that are for-profit companies that got their start by using charitable capital because they're energy, food, water, and social impact. So,
well, Drew, as you talk about that, I think about Scott Harrison and what he did with Charity Water,
sure.
And interestingly, he turned the nonprofit on its head, where he made it be a business, even though it was a quote nonprofit business, but he made it be a business, and he structured it where he had two entities, where one was an entity that basically funded all the expenses as a nonprofit would do, and then he made the other entity be the entity that provided all the clean, safe drinking water. So Scott's brilliant in what he's done, and I think
very clever
model, as you say, going forward, to look at ways that we can build businesses that are about doing well in the world, that can make a lot of money. And look, the more money it makes, the more that it can contribute to doing well in the world. And 100%. What you've done with Water in Box, is awesome and impressive. I want to ask you on the sensor. So is this going to be an independent product?
I'd say it one more time. My phone got one thing.
Is the sensor going to be a product that it's going to be like a consumer product, or is the sensor going to be in the Water in a Box machine?
It will serve both. It'll be a sensor product that individuals who are either homeowners or renters, and would have two different form factors for that, can utilize on themselves, very similar to the way you might get a Nest thermometer, but it won't nearly be thermostat rather. It won't nearly be as expensive. But it's also becomes a B2B product as well, because what we've learned is there can be a nerdy B2B thing that the utility uses, or large corporations use, or construction or concrete that somebody would use. But there will be an out-of-the-box consumer good thing that if you own your home, you can plumb right into your thing, or if you don't own your home, you can do through a simple carafe. That's an IoT carafe that would say, I can see this stuff. So I'm planning on talking to you about that once we're a little further.
Yeah, I know that
Because I know
space.
where you're going next.
I know that space very, very well, and would love to contribute and help in any way I can with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, every time that I talk with you, your enthusiasm and energy level is so high. It's just it's awesome and so inspirational, and you continue to bring that energy forward, where a lot of people, particularly in today's world, will get dragged down and look at what's not right, and you just have this overflowing optimism. Isn't just the word for it. It's just like desire to
persistence.
Yeah, and to do well. And
and I'm tired today, Stuart. I was on a flight all day, so I'm at 75% right now.
My goodness.
Yeah, energy. It's
fantastic. So I'd love to open this up to our emissaries, because I'm sure they have many questions they'd like to ask. So who's going to be first to ask Drew?
Come on, Matthew.
Yeah, Matt, I see you stirring around in your chair.
Come on there, Golden Gate Pucci.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm 20. I'm still an undergrad. I don't have any business experience, and I'm just starting now to think about how you can kind of blend like entrepreneurship with your social and those kind of values that you hold and how you want to impact the world. So I'm kind of wondering, do you have any like tips that you wish you would have known if you were, someone like me who's 20, just starting to think about these certain things and how they might make an impact?
Sure. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you feel like you have sort of an entrepreneurial sort of underpinning to you? Do you feel like I want to go and do that, or do you want to go work for a company?
I'm still deciding. I think that is something I'd like to pursue. I am someone who, I'm confident that I could, bring certain ideas, and I know I have the work ethic, and I feel like I can be persistent, like as you say. So I think that's something I'm starting to like, flirt with and start to think about, but I'm still very early on, so I don't know for a fact yet.
And what's your degree? What are you
majoring in?
Environmental studies. So that's why I don't have any. I don't have any business background. That's why I haven't really thought about it. Yeah, this is now me starting to get exposed to it. So I'm glad I'm here listening to you right now.
Cool. Here's what I would recommend. As I said earlier in the call, I went to art school, dude. Art school at Syracuse, right? I'm a pretty accomplished designer, right? Okay, economics and cap tables and business plans and spreadsheets. No, right? But what I've learned is because like I wasn't really good at math and science in high school. I just wasn't. I didn't gravitate towards it. It was a thing. And so I had set up these walls about like, oh well, that's math and science. I don't do that. And as I've learned over the last couple of years that where I am now, and I'm sorry, my sister's texting me. On Tuesday, I was sitting with Jeff Grossman, who's the head of material science at MIT, talking about his level of storytelling and why it sucks. And so I'm like, what am I doing as a guy with a painting degree sitting in Mass Ave with the head of material science, who I've developed a really good relationship with because somehow or another I started to be passionate about the areas that I'm going into, because I realized I could use my talents to do this, but I had to become. So when you love and no matter what disposition you're from, you learn to, if you learn something really good and you think you want to add the next chapter, you start to reinvent what that is. And I know it sounds like some artsy, crappy stuff, but what I would recommend if I could go back would be you do not have to go to Wharton and you don't have to go to Sloan or whatever, but having it, I don't think even though you're like, I'm in environmental studies because I like this aligns with my values here, is kind of start to really not feel put off by things about understanding, how to scale companies, what a startup looks like, what's a cap table, what are LPs, what is venture, how does it work? Like, don't be afraid of that stuff, because everyone, guys and gals that are not as smart as you are out there learning that stuff right now, right? And my thing is, you have absolutely all license to go into that environment that is not environmental studies, that's over there in the econ school or wherever the hell they are, and say, I can learn it. And don't be afraid about it. Don't be intimidated. There's so many great books out there. You'll Drawdown and Paul Hawken, you'll get all that, right? Because you're gonna get that anyway. But get over here with some of these books that are, some of the things that are like, Sophia, what's that book we just read? That was, I forget what it was. It's a good one about scaling. I forgot. Oh, Play Bigger. That's a good book.
Yeah.
It was Play Bigger. There's a book called Play Bigger, right? And it's all about category captains. And you might be thinking, I'm in environmental science, I don't know category captain. But it's a wicked easy read, and it gets you having the dialogue with the people that you might, look at. And then, I think when inspiration and understanding how businesses, there's lots of great podcasts like How I Made This, with what's his name, Roz, Roz guy that I did that thing with. So, just like all that stuff is like, don't be afraid of it. Like dive in, just be like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's great advice, other than I waited 15 years to start understanding what the hell a cap table was and what the hell, these Class B shares and blah, blah, all that crap. And I wish that when I was your age, holding a painting brush at a studio in circus, that I was also thinking about where I thought I would be in 15 years and had a better head start at that. And if you are going to start a company, do whatever you can early on, not to take on too much money. That's another Stuart Ruddock class.
Good advice. Yeah. And what Drew is really saying in the bigger picture is that, look, this is all about people. And so while you are in environmental studies, you have your strengths. And when you build a company, you are only as strong as your weakest link of the people in your company. And so you're going to team up with someone that understands cap tables and finance, and someone that understands sales and marketing. But I will tell you that the one thing that entrepreneurs miss is they're always focused on money, sales, and revenues. And what they miss is it's all about the people. And when you start a company,
100%.
On your values of why you are doing this, what is your purpose for doing this? And what are the values in your company? And if that is the foundation for everything that you do, and you create that as part of your, I'll call it structure, process, and systems ways of being, you have then the foundation to build and scale people. And so that's what we do through our accelerator program. We don't just focus on the money side, we focus on leadership and culture and values and process and systems. So everyone in your company acts as a owner of the business and sees themselves as an owner of the business. So they are responsible instead of just being an employee that comes and goes, or maybe does things which are self-serving rather than with serving the business itself.
100%. And I'm going to put a podcast, or Sophia's, because I don't know how to do this thing. There's a Sam Harris podcast called Making Sense. I don't know if you heard it. Sam Harris is kind of a high-minded, very, very bright fellow, but he had a podcast called Corporate Courage, and it was Jason Fried, who runs Basecamp, which is kind of like a Salesforce kind of thing. And this dude, you got to hear this podcast, because he's talking everything Stuart was just talking about. I highly, highly recommend listening to it, because he's talking about the traditional things of entrepreneurs being like, they're always just worried about money and revenues and profits at any whatever. It's like, bro, that is so 2004. That is not where we're going in this next generation. So I'm gonna
Sophia put it.
Still, this is really, really, really cool.
Sorry, I did put it in, but I think that link is kind of weird.
It's a weird link.
I'm sending a Spotify link as well for that podcast. Great. It is a really great podcast.
Sophia, while you're there,
if you want to go super deep on,
we haven't heard from you yet, but I would like to hear from you about, you and your, tell us a little bit about you, please.
I'm blushing. I appreciate it. So I could kind of riff actually off of like Matthew's question in terms of advice and things that I found helpful. Matthew, you said you're 20. I'm 21. And I've been working at 501c3 for about a year now, which is crazy. Drew, one day, out of the blue, hit me up about a year ago, asking me to help him with a project. And I really do think, first of all, our organization's culture is amazing, especially because we're like a very small and intimate team. But Drew and I met 2-ish years ago at an environmental networking event. I have a traditional background as a journalist. I used to run the radio station at UCLA. And prior to that, I did broadcast journalism and filmmaking and stuff like that in high school. Originally, I'm from Florida. And I studied environmental systems and society, as well as public policy at UCLA, which is funny because we do a lot of work with UCLA now. And, very roundabout thing, essentially, there is this very fancy event in Beverly Hills almost every year that the Environmental Media Association holds. And it's called the Impact Summit. And it's pretty much, they get a bunch of rich people and they get a bunch of celebrities and a bunch of really smart, nerdy people. And the rich people throw their money at the nerdy people and they listen to them talk about climate innovation. So I approached Drew because I had seen actually the video that I just sent in the chat. I had seen that video a year or two before that. And I saw Drew wearing a tag that said Just Water. Everyone had tags for their organizations. And I was walking around, I was networking. And I said, hey, do you work for Just Water? He goes, I'm the founder of Just Water. Right, I made it. And I said, cool, can I get you for an interview? And he was like, yeah, sure, and then I chased him down, as Drew said, with tenacity at this event. And I got an interview with him as well as Jaden for my previous podcast called Enviro Positive. And from then on, Drew and I were we just became really good friends. And I was sort of like his Gen Z consultant. I still kind of am in a way, in a funny way. But long story short, my best advice is when you're young and you've clearly got spunk and personality, and all of you guys are probably here for a reason. Network, talk to people, meet people. Most people are really only an email away. And there's a reason that, Drew does events like this and go meet the people who like you want to be. Right. And meet the people and learn from them, have a conversation with them. And yeah, so that's a little bit about kind of how I got involved with 501c3. Right now, I manage a lot of the communications side of 501c3, kind of our voice, our tone, because I'm young, as well as the projects. So I do a lot of the project management. And what I like to say is like, Drew and Jaden, they're really big dreamers and artists. And I kind of have the coolest job in the world of getting to turn their dreams into a reality. And so, yeah, it's very special. And I've loved my time at 501c3 so far. And it's a really great place, for me to continue learning and explore areas that I also wasn't necessarily comfortable with before, things like venture capital, things that are like really, really heavy STEM. I was always really fascinated by, but for some reason, there's a reason I didn't study environmental science. I got to college and I saw the physics requirements and the chem requirements. And I said, never mind. I don't want to spend my undergrad crying myself to sleep all the time. So essentially, during the pandemic, I started working remotely for 501c3 as everything was remote. That was back when I was in Florida. Then I went back to LA. Now I'm in Rio. Thanks to the wonderful remote world that we live in. And yeah, it's a journey, and it's definitely a wonderful place to work with wonderful people in a really, really good mission-driven culture. And I think the coolest thing about mine and probably Drew's job is that on a daily basis, we meet so many people who are like changing the world, who really have ideas and honestly like the money to do it as well. It's quite inspiring. And I was thinking about it earlier today, reflecting actually on that EMA experience from 2 years ago, where I was like, wow, people were throwing money at climate innovation back then, look at what's happening now. Like now that's really where everything is going. So as much as it is kind of a depressing work sphere sometimes, if you're like reading the news and you can get into this bubble of like, oh man, like I don't know if anyone's ever going to hit like net zero or whatever, carbon negative, all these terms that companies are using, like seems very far-fetched. But then you actually get into the work and you see the work that people are doing, and it's very, very inspiring. And it does give you hope. And there's also the young people, like the ones that are sitting here and myself, who are doing their best to make changes. And it's also really inspiring. So yeah, that's a bit about me. But direct all your questions to Drew. I know we don't have that much time left.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to want to reach out to you to share with a little bit more about what we're doing at Water Emissaries and see to whatever extent that whether you or more of this younger community can be involved. So thank you so much. Okay, how about who's next for a question? Julieta?
Yeah, hi. I have a question regarding whether the decision to not have IP was why you were motivated to not do that, and if if you think it helped you in like a private public sort of unison later down the line. Right now, I'm in the master's program in animal studies at NYU, and I'm interning as a communications intern for a alternative protein startup incubator. So I'm just starting to like learn about a lot of things. And one of the big questions I have is just like what intellectual property, how having too much of that might slow progress down, and when we need a very quick time frame to solve a lot of issues. But some things that I've read or heard in podcasts are that it might scare investors away, or yeah. So I'm curious if you could speak to your experience with your decision on that matter, and what you would suggest.
Well, so some of the entrepreneurs that might be in your alternative meat incubator or accelerator, I don't know much about it, but those would all be people that are working. My assumption is they're all working to develop IP, whether it's, you know, trying to get the right consistency of a sort of alternative to like chicken or protein or something like that. That's one thing. If you're talking about like, hey, Drew, why didn't you have any IP? You're probably talking about our relief work that's in Flint and Watts, right? And the reason for that is because we're a charity. This is it's nonprofit. We're not operating the new startup called waterbox.com. We're waterbox.org. Well, that's actually where we're going, but it's 501c3.org. We don't need IP. And specifically in the problems that we're setting out to address, the hardware is already out there. It's been around for years. You know, we didn't need innovation. We didn't need the innovation. Of what we did is we just took a bunch of stuff that's off the shelf parts, put it into an interesting package, because we went and did a fact-finding listening tour with these people that are getting hit by this water. She's like, what would be the best device for you? And they're like, well, we do this like this. And we're like, cool, we'll be back and we'll design something for it. We didn't need any IP because, you know, if you go to Home Depot and go and get a little water filter thing and you put it under your sink and it's got like 3-stage filters and it's like this big, it's the exact same thing as in the water box. It's just scaled up, and it's the exact thing that's at the utility level, but that's just at a much more hardcore industrial level. It's all the same thing. There's no innovation really in water filtration right now. So
actually, I have a lot to share with you about that at some stage too, because there is a lot of innovation anyway. Yeah.
Sorry. With the particular industrial and public filtration that we do, I'm sorry, I phrased that the wrong way. There is a lot of innovation in the water space in a variety of different areas. For the innovation for like, how do you clean public water, right? How do we assure public? They've been doing it the same way for 50 years, right? So now there are other new filtration methodologies with nanofabrication and things, and that's a whole nother thing. But for us, we didn't have any IP. We didn't need it to help the people in Flint. So I don't know if that answered your question. Other than that decision was made for us on our own. We weren't like, should we go left? Should we go right? It's not. Let's go get 4 stages of filtration, put it in a cool box, fabricate the box, and get it to people that can use it and teach them how to use it and make it really, really a simple design, so that if and when maybe like a shop class of the Urban League in Costa Mesa wants to build one, we'd make it open source. Does that make sense?
I will say, you've referred earlier, Drew, that you have a gifted piece of your life and your aspect, and having Will and Jaden gives you a calling card that is opening doors that, you know, is extraordinary. And that's not to say that that someone else can't get those doors open with their passion and their story and their commitment. So, and that's the key to this all, is that whatever you're doing, you just got to have this undeniable conviction and persistence to just go and have your dream come true.
And let me add one thing onto that, which I think is another thing, is one of the words that's most underrated outside of persistence is joy, right? And joy it's used so many times. You think of, oh, Christmas cards, season of joy, all that bullshit. Joy is what happens when you really like something, you love something. You meet, you know, the girl of your dreams or the guy of your dreams, like you're like full of joy. It's not happiness, it's joy. And so when you look at this, and people are like, you go to these entrepreneur things, and they're like, you're gonna fail 4 times, you're gonna this, it's gonna suck, you're gonna have near-death experience. It's just like, ow, that doesn't sound fun. I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound fun. One of the things that we did with this is not what you sell, it's what you stand for. And when you can go behind anything you want to do with ethic and thoughtfulness and reason and meaning and joy, it makes it a lot easier. It just makes it funner. You know, I'm so happy to be delivering people clean water. I'm so happy that we did this. This was a lot of work, but there wasn't a minute of it that didn't feel like fun, didn't feel like joy. You know, so in that,
that's so fundamental. That's critical, and so happy that you brought that up. Yeah,
a game layer. So Matthew, as you start getting like freaked out by business books, say, no, I'm going to learn this better than the next guy. It's a game layer. I'm going to learn this. And you too, Julietta, when you're in other thing, don't look at it as a daunting set of work. Look at the shit I get to do. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to change people's lives in this way and this way and this way and this way. And, you know, you're going to meet your colleagues to the left and the right of you, and, you know, Matthew, you're going to meet someone like Sophia, and Sophia's going to meet someone like Matthew, and you're going to lift each other's things and go, what about this? That's awesome. I love this. This is cool. And your energy is just going to start to, you know, have a coefficient. Yeah, that's right.
So Ben or Christopher, you have a burning question?
I've got a question, yeah.
Hi, Christopher.
When you're trying to make friends or partners in business, is there like a significant difference in the methods you'd use there from just trying to make friends or partners like outside of business? Because I'd say I'd consider myself to have at least decent interpersonal skills, but I wouldn't consider myself much of a businessman. So
I don't know how I understand the questions. The methodology for getting sort of business colleagues, or
from what I'm understanding, right, trying to make friends and partners is like important for when you're trying to like help build, you know, try to help set things up and build things up. But I don't think I'm much of a business person. I wouldn't consider myself very business savvy, but I think I'd have decent interpersonal skills. So,
well, I think that what are you studying?
Environmental studies also.
Oh, good, very, very good.
Yeah.
I think another word that's underestimated is community. And I think when you get into a community of people that are like-minded, right, Christopher, while you may or may never really be the guy who's going to look at the financial spreadsheets and all that stuff, you know, if you get into a community, you know, if you go find some dude on LinkedIn who's like, I'm a quant, I do this awesome, well, there's not going to be an authentic relationship there. So I think when I'm involved with this environmental media association. Sophia had a general interest there when she was an undergrad. She went in and got around and was super tenacious, and she looked around the room and there was a community of people that were all kind of swimming in the same direction about a specific thing. So I don't think you need to be like Mr. How you doing, charismatic, But what I do think is you got to search out your tribe that is aligned with the values that you want to be involved with. You think you know, when I get out, I want to be involved with this that's working on this. I want to help this who's working on this. You don't need to find the person, find the tribe, and you will slowly but surely sort of navigate and swim through that little ecosystem, I think, and you'll meet your friends, you know. And that person today might be is a little more unsure what they're going to do tomorrow, but one of the things I learned in Hollywood is look at the left and look at the right of you for all you newbies, all you freshmen in Hollywood. Well, guess what? They're going to run Netflix one day. They're going to do this one day. And they're right. So find your tribe and find your community and the values and issue and ethical area you want to be involved with, or the work area. And that alignment and that resonance with your own authenticity in the issue area is going to help you find friends, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that. One more quick thing, if you don't mind. Would you say that entrepreneurial ship is like the most efficient way to make these like big ideas happen?
No, I do believe in the power of private markets to be able to affect change. I think there's a variety of different spaces. There's a nonprofit space. There's a public sector. Or you know, federal or governmental, and I'm sitting here looking at like CNN, and they're just trying to pass some semblance of a freaking infrastructure bill, and that's a shit show, for sure. But there's the private sector, and so I think the entrepreneur. I do believe that there's a role for all those. Not this one isn't better than this one isn't better than this is much better. That entrepreneurs are the things that have created the greatest innovations and some of the greatest things that we're seeing. Look at the private space travel environment. But you know, look at the jet engine. But the jet engine was paid for by the U.S. government, and then jet engines like Lockheed Martin and ever used the innovation that came from that. Sorry, I'm getting real nerdy into this right now. I believe there is a role for entrepreneurs. If you don't have the grit or the like risk tolerance to go out and do a startup, then look for other entrepreneurs inside your tribe that do, and say, I'd like to be involved with this. Or go in and volunteer, or go, look at some of the nonprofits you like. Like I have a good relationship with the Redford Center. They do films for climate change stuff, right? I just am friends with them. I just met Jill Tidman way back in the day, and I've always stayed in touch. I don't speak to Robert Redford very much, but I know Jill Tidman very, very well. And anytime she needs some advice on something, I give it to her. And anytime I need some advice on something, she gives it to me. And that's a nonprofit. Going to work for a nonprofit is super noble, super, super noble. And maybe one day you'll start your own nonprofit. So I don't know if that answered your question. Entrepreneurs play a distinct role, but they're not the only role, for sure.
Yeah, no, that definitely answered the question. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out here tonight.
Of course.
We have time for one more.
I actually have a question.
Madeline?
I was wondering, you've spoken a lot about advocacy for Black and Brown communities, and that's primarily the people that are being affected by lack of resources and access to clean water. But I'm curious about how, I feel like saying keep yourself in check isn't the right verbiage, but sort of how you create a platform for change within these communities while also using, like, lifting them up as opposed to sort of taking on a white savior complex. I know that can be a really difficult line to navigate, but I would love to know more about your experience with that, especially with your background and where you've come from.
Sure, I'm not symbolic of the people that I like to refer to in our communities, but I feel personally that I have every right and an obligation what stays there. In this particular environment, I don't feel like white savior complex whatsoever, largely because I'm driving a group that is actually delivering impact. And I don't need to go on stage and be like, look what I did. I'm literally looking at metrics saying, we gave this amount of water last year. I don't care if I'm white, Black, brown, 50, 60, 70. I'm going to occupy a role in this particular conversation, in this particular environment for impact, and you can drive with authenticity. Did me and my group provide great stuff to people on the ground? The other thing on that, I think, is there will be a bunch of white savior stuff. And, there's a lot of people out there, specifically in the bubbles of Hollywood and DC. There's a lot of that not leading by authenticity, and that's cool. I don't have any time for that. The thing that I've learned, and which kind of keeps putting wind back in my sails, is when I go. One of the things that you hear when you go to a community like Flint and you're delivering on what you said you're going to do, and you're not making it difficult for these people to get involved. There's no angle to this. That you hear the word thank you for thinking of us. We have been forgotten. We're forgotten people. This is not, nobody is talking about Flint. It's out of the news. It's out of Rachel Maddow. It's out of the headlines. And you guys came in and very quietly didn't sit here and try to take a victory lap with the freaking mayor, the formerly corrupt mayor of Flint, and try to and selfie and get out. You just lead by actual action and doing these types of things. And so when you get into those communities, we did a call today, Sophia and I, I'd never been to Watts until about 2 years ago. And now we did a call today with Watts where we're doing a ton of stuff in Watts and being able to help, and fantastic people in that community. And we are looking for opportunities to be able to help them as much as we can. And if I could get up every day and help someone, I don't care. I don't really worry about my reputational risk of being like white male savior guy, because I'm freaking good at what I do and I know how to help people. I don't know if that answered your question, but in my America, there's a problem with gun control. There's a problem with women's rights being taken away. There's a problem with incarceration, the business of incarceration, right? There's a problem with infighting, and there's a problem with communication. These are all social justice things that piss me off as a white 50-year-old guy who grew up relatively privileged. I can't tolerate this shit, right? So I'm not necessarily a marcher, and that's not because I'm tired and I don't march, but I can sit from my point of view and I can sit and try to enact change with the talents and skills that I have, right? When we were pulling out of Afghanistan, I did a call with this group that's sort of high net worth, and we're looking at these horrific things on the screen, of what's happening, and the fear and uncertainty with rights and gender-based rights, and this very, very tumultuous and happening real time, total fuck up in Afghanistan, even though it probably had to happen. That's getting political. But we got an email that came in, and it was like a bunch of super high net worth people saying, hey, we need to do a rapid fundraise to help get women either from private or charter jets out to like Doha or Ramstein. And we need to get money so that we can help support them for the next couple of months, right? And there were some dollar signs on there, and there were big numbers, you know, for a private jet out of anywhere is expensive. And so I was like, you know what? I am absolutely disheartened today. I'm pissed off looking at MSNBC and CNN and looking at how scary this is for these people that are so far away from the world from where I am here in Encino. And I just put my fingers on the keyboard and just started hitting people up saying, this is what's happening, this is what's happening. It was a very fever pitch with Afghanistan. And within a minute, somebody wrote back and said, I will give you $125,000 to pay for 6 women's expenses in Doha when they get out of there. Like that happened like that, right? I'm just like, I was one email, right? And I just happened to just say, fuck it, I'm going to take time out of my day and I'm going to send an email. It's going to be a well-worded email. It's going to be full of my passion, full of my whatever. And I don't know, I'll never meet these women. I don't know what's happening, but I know that money went there. And I know the group that's doing it, Vital Voices, is a real deal NGO. And so for me, yeah, that's a God complex to have in one day be able to help support 6 women that have escaped from, you know, the harshness of a developing world like Afghanistan. But if that's white male God complex, then I'll take that all day long.
I can also add really quickly to something I've learned from Drew and kind of tie back to my point with like making connections with people early on. It's not that 501c3 goes into neighborhoods that we see are in distress and we drop a water box there. A lot of what we do is founded upon Drew's and Jaren's and our team's friendships with the people that are leaders in those communities. So that sort of trust, and I studied public policy, so I totally understand like the white saviorism, and we've seen a lot of it, and I honestly see a lot of it day to day as well. But essentially, like it's not just that. For example, in Watts, we emailed Styx's people and they emailed us back and we said, okay, let's do a water box. I mean, like Drew and Styx are friends. I'm friends with some teams out there. And for example, on Juneteenth, Styx was honored with the key to the city in Watts. And like that really didn't have very much to do with 501c3 or didn't have a direct correlation to like our water justice work, right? But Drew and I and our friends and family went out there to support Styx. Why not for anything that has to do with 501c3, but for the fact that we genuinely support these people and we support these communities and they're friends and there are connections and we see the changes that they want to make. And we're sort of inspired by that like-mindedness in the space. So that's something I wanted to add. Drew's like quite humble about it usually, but he's definitely a people person and he has a lot of friends and connections with people. And it really isn't something superficial or surface level. Like if Drew sees someone who wants to make an impact in their community, he says, okay, how can we help, right? And people really genuinely appreciate that. And we do our best as 501c3 to sort of go beyond the like traditional nonprofit ivory tower of like doing, I don't know, a lot of the work that other nonprofits do is very important, but we're kind of like a next gen nonprofit, right? Where we care a lot about these like holistic values and the way we treat others. So essentially, like I said, a lot of it comes down to just having good relationships with the people in those communities and understanding like the nuance of the communities. So yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to be accusatory in any way by asking that question. I just meant more. I know it's a very fine line to walk, and so just learning more about your experiences as an organization and doing that was, yeah, I was
not at all, Madeline. No, not at all. I appreciate the question. And any one of you people, when you graduate, if you want to get involved with 501c3, just hit us up. And we take you down to Watts. Come on, Christopher and Matthew and.
Might take you up on that.
Giulietti. Come on, let's go.
Cool.
All right. I'm always available.
Of our time, I appreciate you sticking around a little bit longer than we originally intended, Drew. If there are other burning questions, what I would say is maybe we can just email them to Drew and he could respond directly, and or Sophia can to give you answers. And just bow to gratitude and humility for you, Drew, and how you live your life. It's beautiful, man. You're a standout in your community. I mean, it's hard for me to see that, but you are. And
you're awfully nice, Stuart.
I'm deeply grateful and respectful of what you're doing, and looking forward to us to continue to develop our friendship and ways that we can work together to do
Sure.
the things we need to do in the world to enrich the lives of all of us on this planet, especially those in low-income minority communities, which water is the fundamental issue for them.
Water and energy. Well, listen, at the risk of sounding patronizing, I'm very proud of all of you who joined and have joined this with Stuart as an emissary. You know, you got it. You know, it's different. It's something that I guess in your heart you wanted to go out and do. And so not everybody's doing that. There's a bunch of your colleagues that are playing Xbox right now, and you're not. You're on a Zoom call listening to me wax poetic about stuff. So kudos to you guys for getting out there and being involved in the community. And I wish you all the best. So we're now friends. So hit me up with anything you want.
Thank you, Drew. And thank
You're
you.
welcome.
You're a beautiful inspiration. I can just feel your energy and your optimism and your passion is just so big. So
she's awesome.
Thanks, everyone. I like to say I learned from the best. But thank you all for your time.
Look at that. Come on.
Yeah. All right.
All right, guys. Stuart, good to see you.
You too. And
good luck, everyone.
Forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you once again.
If the emissaries want to just stay on a minute. Great. I just want to say that I hope you all understand and value what is being shared with you and how precious this is and how generous people are. All the people that we've had sharing with you are people that are very, very busy in their lives and doing huge, important activities. And they've all said yes to you because they know that the future is our young leaders. And so what we're doing here at Water Emissaries, and we haven't had a chance to talk with you at length about this, but we need to make time for this because we've just bombarded you with all this information, which is great. But we also need to take a step back. And so Madeline and Caroline and I have talked about this, and I think we should make it, if it's possible, if it's not either next session or the session after, for us to just take some time for us as a group to talk. We've gotten some feedback from you all about the program. And we really look, this is not a short-term goal. This is a lifelong goal of us educating people about water and the importance of water and how it is the really underlying fundamental element of everything in our lives. Every business is dependent upon water, and all life is dependent upon water. And so while we're focused on water, it's all the things that water touches. So we're going to do this on our next call or two, where we get some time just to talk bigger, longer range thinking. And we're here to offer you, as we've done, our support and our guidance and our community, which, as you can see, is beyond extraordinary. And what a gift and what a blessing. And so I'm grateful for the people that have said yes and are here to help us and work with us. And the other piece is, I don't know if any of you've ever made any of the well gatherings, but it's what we do at the well gatherings is once again extraordinary. And if you haven't, if you'll please take some time, go on the website at WIA, waterinno.com, and look at some of these, the webcasts that we've done, the Oceanside chats, as we call them, so you can see what's being shared there. And I really want your presence there because we need you as youth and as leaders and as asking these questions in the future. That's really important. So we haven't decided when our next one is in October yet, but I'm trying to decide what I want to do. It'll be a innovative time there, but I'd love for you to participate. And then we haven't talked about this. I don't think we've talked about World Toilet Day. Have we at all, or mentioned it briefly? No?
Yeah, we did. That was actually part of the activity that was planned tonight. So maybe we could discuss that more next time.
Okay. So I just want to really emphasize that most people don't know World Toilet Day exists, and they think it's a third world issue, and it's not. It's a first world issue. There was an article this week about 20% of homes in America don't have water in their homes, and they're in low-income minority communities, and that's not okay, and it's all solvable. So I think it's up to us, our responsibility for us to really put it out there and to make people aware of, oh my goodness, this is not just an issue of the 2.5 billion people in the developing world. This is an issue with people across the tracks, as Drew made it very clear. It's in communities that are very close to where we all are living, and it's solvable. So I just want to make sure we capitalize on this opportunity. And then, as Drew said, it's about having fun, joy, and really make this be something that we find invigorating, inspiring. As you can see, Drew is that way, and he's just, full of energy and positive activities. And we want to make World Toilet Day not be about the problems, but about how we can help those that are challenged by it. So I leave it with that and just say, I'm grateful for you all to be part of this program. And I hope that you will become actively engaged with us going forward, and that you will bring others into this program, because that's what this is about. We started this small, which is wonderful, but our next program we expect to be much larger, and we'd love to have you all be involved in some way with our next program and in the activities we have going forward. So I'll leave it at that for now, but on our next call, we want to go into this much more deeply together. Thanks, Julietta. That's sweet.
That was Ben did a heart, but thank you so much.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Yeah, should be good.
Yeah, we're creating magic, guys. And I will tell you something. People are going to wake up to the value of water. Water is looked at today as cost. It's not just about cost. It's about the value of water, and it's precious. And we are about to enter a cycle around the planet where water is going to become more dear and more precious. And people are going to realize and wake up to this fact. And so we're ahead of the wave, but it's coming, and we are going to be part of the wave that's going to come, that's going to create these solutions that is going to enrich all of our lives. I'm done.
Thank you, Stuart.
I could talk for a lot longer, but I'm done. I'm done with this mission and mantra for the moment. But forward to our next call together.
Yeah,
I also just have a quick comment. I did make a Facebook group today. I can put the link. I meant to bring this up at the beginning of the meeting, but we made like a Water Emissaries alumni Facebook group that we'll be posting announcements and things in. It's in the chat right now, so if people want to join that, that would be lovely. It's sort of another way for everybody to stay in touch as we're moving forward and after the program too. So,
well, thank you. That was an awesome meeting.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Have a good evening.
I hope I have as much energy as Drew. It's a lot of work ahead.
Well, it's actually, if you do what you love, the energy just comes from that. And so that's the key, is do what you love, and that you're passionate about it, and you always have the energy for that. So have a great weekend, and we'll talk with you all next week.
we'll see you Tuesday. Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend.